I wasn't supposed to be there that day. My train had been rerouted through Truro because of some signal fault outside Plymouth, and I'd had 40 minutes to kill and a stomach that hadn't seen food since 6 in the morning. Someone at the station pointed me toward a bakery on the high street. Trevithick's, the sign read, hand-painted in that particular shade of Cornish blue that looks like it was mixed from actual seawater. That's the only reason I walked through that door. The bell above the frame gave a tired little chime. The place smelled of crimped pastry and something earthy Swede, I think, or maybe just old flour worked into the wooden counter for so many years it had become part of the architecture. There were 3 women behind the cases and a queue of about 7 people ahead of me, and everything about the room was ordinary, unhurried, the way Tuesday mornings in small towns tend to be. Then, the woman in front of me, 60s, green waterproof, mud still fresh on her boots, went very still. Not startled. Not frightened. Just still. The way you go still when your brain is processing something your eyes haven't confirmed yet. I followed her gaze toward the back of the bakery, past the glass cases full of pasties arranged in careful rows, past the little chalkboard listing today's flavors in somebody's looping handwriting. There was a man standing at the prep counter. Tall. Shirt sleeves rolled to the elbow. Apron tied at the front in the kind of double knot you do when you actually mean it. He was bent slightly over a circle of pastry, and one of the bakers, a woman maybe 60, with the kind of forearms you earn from 20 years of crimping, was guiding his hands with the calm authority of someone who has never in her life been impressed by a title. Fold it toward you, she was saying. Don't rush the edge. Let the pastry make the decision. He nodded. Focused. There was flour on his left cuff where he'd caught the edge of the bench, and he hadn't noticed, and nobody told him, and somehow that detail, that small, unguarded smear of white on a very expensive shirt, was the thing that made the whole room breathe differently. Prince William was making a pasty. Not ceremonially. Not for a photograph where hands hover near dough and everyone smiles at the camera. He was actually making one, pressing the filling, working the fold, his jaw set with the particular concentration of a person who has been told how to do something and is determined not to get it wrong. The woman in green beside me made a sound. Very small. The kind of sound you make when something catches you off guard and you haven't decided yet whether to believe it. Is that, she started. Yes, I said. We stood there, the 2 of us, strangers sharing the specific paralysis of watching royalty struggle with pastry crimping in real time. Outside, I could hear the sound of the street. A delivery van reversing. A gull making its opinion known about something. The world continuing as worlds do. In here, the baker adjusted William's grip on the edge of the fold, no ceremony, no hesitation, just the correction of a craftsperson watching a student, and he adjusted, and tried again, and the edge came together cleaner this time. She nodded once. He looked quietly pleased. Not the polished, camera-ready pleased that you see in official photographs. The actual kind. The kind where satisfaction lives in the shoulders. I ordered a cheese and onion and ate it standing outside on the pavement, thinking about the flour on his cuff the whole way back to the station. Her name was Margaret Polkinshorn, and she had been making pasties since she was 7 years old. She told me this herself, about 20 minutes after William left, when the bakery had exhaled back into something resembling its normal Tuesday self, and she came around the counter to wipe down a table near the window where I'd parked myself with a tea I hadn't planned to buy. I hadn't planned to stay, either. But the train was still delayed, and the tea was good, and Margaret had the kind of face that made you feel like leaving would be slightly rude. You were watching, she said. Not accusatory. Just observant. Everyone was watching, I said. She made a sound that wasn't quite agreement. Sat herself down across from me with the ease of someone who owns her square footage completely. Set her cloth on the table. He rang 2 days ago, she said. His office, I mean. Polite. Asked if we'd be willing. I said yes, obviously. A pause. But, I told them, he works. Not stands. Works. I asked her what she meant by that. She looked at me like the question was slightly beneath both of us, but answered anyway. Some of them come in and they hover, she said. They touch things for the photo and, then, they step back. I've had that. I've had the hover and smile. She tapped the table once with one finger. He wasn't that. I asked her what he was like. She thought about it. Actually thought the way people do when they're choosing accuracy over flattery. He listened, she said finally. Most people think they know already. They've watched a video, or they've been told a thing, and they come in already knowing. She shook her head. He didn't know. He let himself not know. I thought about the way he'd adjusted his grip when she corrected him. No hesitation. No pride getting in the way of the instruction. He asked about the crimping, she continued. Not why we do it, everyone asks why. He asked how. How do you know when it's right? How does your hand learn the pressure? She looked down at her own hands briefly. That's a real question. That's someone who's thought about what skill actually is. Outside, a group of tourists had gathered near the bakery window, phones raised, apparently alerted by someone's social media post that something was happening or had recently happened here. They were peering in with the confused energy of people who have arrived after the main event. Margaret glanced at them without particular interest. He stayed 40 minutes, she said. Made 3. First one was wrong, he knew it was wrong, I didn't have to tell him. Pulled it apart himself and started again. She almost smiled. I liked that. I asked what happened to the ones he made. Ate one himself, she said. Standing right there at the counter. Didn't wait for a plate. This time she did smile, brief and genuine. Gave the other 2 to the lads on the security detail. They looked like they hadn't been expecting that. I thought about that image for a moment. The protection officers standing in the back of a Cornish bakery, holding pasties they'd just been handed by the future king, expressions recalibrating. Were you nervous? I asked. Having him here? Margaret picked up her cloth. Stood. I've been making pasties for 53 years, she said. He was the one who needed to be nervous. She went back behind the counter. I finished my tea. On the window, a tourist's phone pressed flat against the glass, flashlight on, trying to photograph the prep counter where a circle of pastry had been rolled out and folded and pressed into something real. There was still flour on the surface. Nobody had wiped it away yet. There's a version of this story that writes itself easily. Prince visits bakery. Prince makes pasty. Lovely photos. Everyone charmed. Statement released about the importance of preserving Cornish heritage. End. That version is not wrong, exactly. It just misses the particular weight of a moment when something institutional genuinely tries, to be human, and, mostly succeeds. I stood outside Trevithick's for a while after Margaret went back to work, watching the tourists disperse now that they'd confirmed nothing was currently happening, and I thought about the Duchy of Cornwall. Because that's the thing that sits underneath all of it, the fact that William isn't just a visitor to Cornwall. In the oldest, strangest, most English sense of the word, he owns it. Or inherits it. Or stewards it. The language gets slippery depending on who's doing the explaining. The duchy dates to 1337. Created for the Black Prince. Passed to every Prince of Wales since. Covers over 130,000 acres of land across the south of England, much of it in Cornwall. Revenue in the hundreds of millions. Farms and forests and coastal land that has been held by the same institution across 7 centuries of English history. William has walked into stewardship of all of that. And, on a Tuesday in March, he drove to a bakery in Truro and stood at a prep counter and asked a woman named Margaret Polkinghorne how your hands learn the pressure of a crimp. I don't think that's nothing. I'm not saying it resolves anything, the complexity of land ownership, the strangeness of inherited authority, the long argument Cornwall has with the institution William now represents. None of that gets folded up and baked away in 40 minutes. Margaret knows that. William, I suspect, knows that too. But there is something in the how of the showing up. The rolled sleeves. The 3 attempts. The pulling apart of the wrong one without waiting to be told. A man 2 years into the most watched apprenticeship in the world, trying to learn how to be something he was born to be but hasn't yet become. Standing in a room that smells of pastry and centuries of working hands, being corrected by a woman who has earned every callus on her fingers, letting himself be a student. That's not spin. Spin is the hover and smile Margaret described. Spin is the photograph where the hands don't actually touch anything. This was a man getting flour on his cuff and not noticing, because he was paying attention to what he was being taught. My train left Truro at 12:30. I had a window seat. I watched the landscape unspool westward, the river, the low hills, the towns that appear and vanish before you've had time to name them. I thought about what Margaret had said at the end, when I was putting my coat on. Almost an afterthought. She'd said it to the counter, not to me. "He'll come back," she said. I think he actually means it. I don't know what that's worth, as predictions go. People mean things and, then, don't come back all the time. Life reorganizes itself. Schedules consume intentions. But, I believed her. Not because I'm a royalist or a romantic or particularly susceptible to the charm of symbolic gestures. Because of the flower on the cuff. Because of the 3 attempts. Because of a man who pulled apart his own wrong work and started again in a small bakery in Cornwall on a Tuesday, with nobody waiting to congratulate him for it. That's not a headline. That's just someone trying to learn something real. And, in the particular madness of the world we're all currently standing in, that felt like it mattered. Just a little. Just enough.